Welcome back to part 2 of This is Joy and Keri. I am here with these two fabulous ladies. And guess what, listeners? You get to call them your friends because they're part of the community and so are you. We are going to jump right into part 2 of our episode and continue our conversation about life topics and how we are friends and what we think about friendship. Here we go. Let's talk about pros and cons of empty nesting.
Well, I'll start with that because I only have one. So him leaving was traumatic for me. I will be the first to admit when we were deciding what colleges to go to, I'm like, oh, you need to go far away. You need to have that experience. But I have to tell you, that was probably the hardest adjustment for me because it's all about me, right? It was really, 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 really hard for me to let him go. I still struggle with it sometimes. So he's been out of the house for 4 years. His first couple of years, he'd come home for the summer. Then we'd have to readjust and then he'd go back. Since he's now at this college that's here in Raleigh and has his own apartment, he comes and goes now. So it's a whole lot easier. It was hard. He was an active child, so he was very involved in sports. And every weekend we were going to soccer tournaments. I don't want to say our life evolved around him, but a lot of our spare time was with his stuff. When he graduated from high school and moved away, it was an adjustment for Todd and I have to say. It took us a little while, but I think we're all good now, but it was hard. And then you have the whole, they're trying to get their wings, they're trying to figure out who they are. They're dealing with their own independence and scariness when they go away to school. There's a lot of emotion and all that too. It's hard for a lot of parents to deal with. I have some friends whose kids are going off to school now, and I can feel the tension in their voice, and I'm like, this is a great thing. I know they're struggling and they're having a hard time with it too. We don't talk about that a lot from a parental perspective. When your kids go away to school, it's always like, oh, they're going to have all these great things and it's all about the kid, but nobody ever talks about the parent. And it's a big adjustment. I wonder what my mom went through when I left. Of course, as a kid, you don't care. That's my perspective on it.
So, what's one piece of advice you would give our listeners who are going through?
It's going to take a little time to adjust and you'll figure out what your new norm is. Then it's going to be fine. It's not going to be overnight. It's just going to, will take some time. But at the end of the day, you'll figure out what your new relationship is and it's going to be fine.
Keri, what's your empty nest story?
I actually thought it was great. I'm not going to lie. I think part of that is because my oldest was just easy, never had any problems. Then middle child, middle school, I'd open the door to a room. There'd be like an exorcism going inside there. So I would just shut the door and walk away. I was glad for them to get out and experience life on their own. They made me anxious being home when they were older because they thought they knew everything and they were ready to move on. I wanted them to enjoy that and have some peace and quiet. I'm not going to lie.
What about the third one?
My son, he just didn't care senior year. He didn't have any ambition. He ended up getting a scholarship for lacrosse and moving far away. Both of them moved far away, and I wanted that on purpose so that they would actually realize what they had in the house, which they didn't at the time. It did work because they were both like, oh, that wasn't too bad at your house. It doesn't mean that I didn't miss. I mean, it sounds like I don't have a relationship with my children. I'm just saying I was ready for them to go. I really was. I was really prepared for them to go and experience life on their own because it was hard at the end.
So I have 3 as well. My oldest, she did go far away too. And I was so excited for her and ready for her to go because I knew it was going to be amazing. I knew I was going to have a challenging time saying goodbye, but I also knew that she was super prepared and ready and wise enough that I didn't have to worry in that sense about her. What I did not expect, I feel like I went through about 4 months of mourning. I was not expecting to go through that at all. I feel that when I went to college, I was so not prepared. I didn't know how to do laundry. I didn't really know how to cook much. My mom had done everything for me. So I did not want to do that with my kids. I wanted them to feel confident about that kind of stuff. I felt like I had really done a lot of preparation. So I wasn't expecting that mourning period, if you will. Then my middle child went away he was coming here to Arizona. I wasn't living here at the time, and we had a plan for us to move here so he could have in-state tuition. That happened to be our youngest. She's like, I don't care if I leave in the middle of high school, which my oldest two never would have done.
Right.
Had she not been willing to do that, we wouldn't have left. She's still here in Arizona. She didn't go far away. My toughest transition was definitely my oldest going away and feeling like that. So pros and cons. Joy, you alluded to it. You have to work on your relationship with your partner, because when you have an empty nest, guess who's left? The two of you. And if you've been ignoring that for however many years since you had kids, 18 at least, that just adds a whole layer of that emotional strife and adjustment. And obviously it's an adjustment to have an empty house and figure out, oh my God, I have some of my own life back. That's amazing. Which is probably my biggest pro about the whole thing, is that you have space in your life for yourself again.
I don't feel like I have a whole lot of extra time with Tyler out of the house. I haven't felt that at all. Throw COVID in, and if you don't have a good relationship with your spouse at that point, then you're really doomed, because we were together 24/7 trying to figure out the whole working situation. Actually, when COVID started, Tyler was still at Charlotte and they shut down. He was living in off-campus housing by himself, and I'm like, you can't quarantine by yourself. You're coming home. So then he was home for 3-4 months before he found out he got accepted to state, and then he went and he got an apartment with friends. But it was within the first week of being told to go home with COVID that he showed up. And then we're like, okay, now we're back to all three of us again and dealing with the dynamics of that and trying to figure out, how do you work from home? None of us did that. I was at the dining room table for 4 months. Tyler was upstairs and Ty was in this room, and we had to figure all that out. Then that's when I started grocery shopping for my mom, because you can't go in a store. You're highly susceptible to catching COVID. So there was a lot of, this last 15 months has been crazy. I'm with you, Karli. I felt like I went through a mourning period too when he left. That's probably the best way to describe it, because it was an adjustment.
Yeah. Did you go through any of that with Nicole, your oldest, Keri?
Well, first I need to clarify something. I love my children. It sounded like I didn't before.
Your story of ready for them to go is definitely my third. I was ready for her to go.
Yeah. So with Nicole, she went to college in town. She did move out, but it was close enough where it was an easy transition, because you can call her up, you can meet her for lunch, have coffee. whatever.
Yeah.
So that was good. I like what you said about reconnecting with your husband, because that is something that Terry and I really enjoyed, is that time that we had together. I invested a ton of time, my time, our time, his and our time, for the kids, and it got taken away from him. So I think that's part of why it was so great to have that and so valuable to us. The other piece of advice, I do think there's a morning time. I really do. I think for me, my morning time was when they were still in high school, because they were already feeling that sense of wanting to leave. It's like what you said with your oldest, that they were ready to go. So I was mourning them before they even left, maybe. So when they finally left, I was over it.
That makes total sense.
For those people that maybe have had a tough relationship with their children, not tough, but it got a little difficult towards the end and they went off to college, it was the best thing, especially for my middle child. I noticed that based on their friends, whatever friends they have, if their friends' parents are all getting a divorce or don't like each other, then they feel like, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't like my parents either. If all my friends don't like my parents, then maybe I shouldn't like my parents too. I feel like that's what happens in high school, is they take on everybody else's angst and problems, and they think, well, I should have that too. And so when they went to college, and especially going a little bit farther away for college, for those that are worried about sending them farther off, I think they come to realize the value of what they had in parents. I remember my middle daughter, she's like, Mom, people here like their parents. She had crappy friends in high school. Those friends take a toll on them. Just something to keep in mind.
That's good advice. For those of you who are having your children flee the nest, all you can do is prepare them best you can and hope that they remember some of it when they're out on their own. Keri, a lot of what you've said, they realize, oh, I should have appreciated that a little bit more. We all remember going home and being like, oh, home cooked meal and oh, this comfy bed and being spoiled, but to go back home and what that going back home feels like. Your kids go through that too.
I also think they're going to screw up. They're going to make some dumb, absolutely idiotic mistake. You got to love them through that, and they're going to do it. And they need to know that that's life. Because I think we expect our kids to be perfect. I don't know anybody who is. I just think it's important because my husband just reminded me of that recently. He's like, well, good thing you didn't do anything wrong when you were younger. And I'm like, oh, yeah. All right.
Well, like I say, I think our role as a parent is to make sure that our children are good people at the end of the day. Can you make good choices and be a decent human being? That's it, plain and simple. There's a lot more that goes to that, but at the end of the day, that's all we want out of our children, right? That's the expectation. Are you a decent person? Are you contributing to society in a good way? And if you can say yes, then I think you succeeded as a parent. There's going to be good times, there's going to be bad times. I had this conversation with my sister a lot because she's always second guessing herself. And she's like, I know I'm screwing up my child somehow. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I'm like, you've got to stop. We're all screwing up our kids. We're all doing things that we second guess. But at the end of the day, you're doing the best job that you can with what you've got. And you can't beat yourself up. Yes, maybe you had a bad day and you got, into it together, but that's all part of it. That's how I'm measuring success for myself as a parent. Is my child a good person? At this point, I'm going to say yes, but something could happen.
Both of you dropping gems right and left. They're going to screw up. Absolutely. Supporting them through that, but letting them fall a little bit too. That brings the lessons home a little more readily. You can't always swoop in to save them.
If something bad happens, it's not that as much as how they react to it. That's where life really is either positive or negative for them. If they get down on themselves with every bad thing that they do, their life's going to suck. I mean, it just is. So how they react to those times is really what defines their character.
Joy, what you said at the end of the day, giving yourself grace. You're doing the best you can. Your kids are doing the best that they can in that moment, or at least hopefully that's the case.
Yeah, exactly.
If that's what they're leaving your nest with, then you've armed them with the right tools.
Yep.
Let's talk about being a grandparent, because I can't wait. I don't want anything to happen right now, but I can't wait for these days. Keri, you're the grandma in the group. You said you had 3 grandbabies. Tell us what it's like.
Wow, how much time you got.
What are the big pros and cons of being a grandparent?
I don't think there's any cons. I really don't, because you can always send them home. The pros to really see your own kids become parents, and that was such a cool thing for me to see. Also, just the little personalities that come out so quickly. Then you're just laughing to yourself because you're like, okay, she's going to be the one in middle school that's going to shut her door and do the exorcism thing. You know that she's going to get payback for that. They're just so much fun, and it's so much fun to see my husband with them. He's Papa, and we used to just be Grandma and Grandpa. No, you have like names. You get to pick your name.
How did that work?
I don't know, but it's a thing. They're like, what do you want to be called?
What are you called?
I'm called Grammy, Papa and Grammy. Yeah. It's just a really cool experience to see your kids having kids, and just the amount of love that they have for each other, I mean, is just priceless. I just love it. It's the best thing.
That's so cool.
That's awesome.
Does your husband love it too?
Oh my gosh, yes. Max is our oldest grandchild, and he gets to come over and have date nights with us. He looks forward to it so much. I'll come home, he'll already be over here, and you'll just see my husband's legs sticking out of a tent, like, and just giggling going on. It's awesome. And we go on vacation with him too. We're going to go somewhere in October, and they're all coming.
Do you feel more relaxed as a grandparent than you did as a parent? Like you said, they can just go home and you don't have to worry about it. I would think there's a lot more of, hey, I can spoil the hell out of them. It doesn't really matter. Do you feel like you have more leeway or less anxiety as a grandparent than you did as a parent?
I am a highly anxious person, so no.
Okay.
I am completely worried that they're gonna fall in the corner of the
Okay.
fireplace or they've got food all over. I think there's still rice somewhere in this house that we need to find from them eating dinner once. I am very anxious about them hurting themselves. Max just the other day, he's like, I want to do a somersault. He's in the driveway, and I'm like,
Ooh.
get in the grass. And then I just freaked him out because he's like, oh my gosh, why is she losing it? You know, I at the time had no common sense of leaning in and be like, honey, no, no, no. No, that I totally overreacted. Sorry, Joy.
Keri, as you're saying that, I know I will be a complete freak about them getting hurt because when I'm at the grocery store and there's parents with their kids in the cart and they're starting to stand up and I'm over there like ready to catch the baby. And I feel like I spot out all the dangers of these kids like hanging on the thing. I'm like, oh my God, they're going to slip off there and crack their head on the concrete. I don't ever remember worrying about that stuff.
You don't know how many times I've said, let's look the other way. We don't want to be a witness. Like,
oh my gosh, too funny. Thank you for sharing the Grammy and Papa advice.
See, Karli, you have to start thinking about what your name's going to
I
be.
know, I do need to start thinking about that. My kids probably will have an opinion about that, so I will have to check with them.
But then you can just say, guess what? My choice. You don't get to determine what they're going to call me. It's me.
Yeah. Do they all call you the same thing, Keri? All the grandkids call you the same thing?
yes.
I don't know. My 3 kids might have 3 very different opinions on that. To look forward to.
I would guess it's the one that has the first that gets to make the decision.
That might be confusing if they're calling you different things.
I would think so.
Life problems, right?
Yeah.
Not happening yet.
No, I was going to say, I think it's going to be a while for me as well.
Okay. This friendship is about friends and friendship, and we believe that life is a better place because of our friends and our friendships. So we are asking all of our guests at the end of our episodes, how have your friends made your life happier?
I'm going to let you in on a little secret. I don't make friends super easy. I grew up with 3 brothers. I'm much more comfortable talking about football rather than recipes. For me, friendships have to be not work. If I've got to pretend that I agree with you when I don't really agree with you, it drains me. That's maybe the introvert in me. So for me to have a friend that brings me value or laughter or whatever, it's somebody who just sees me for me and can just appreciate my flaws, my quirks, my stupidity, and they're okay with it and they don't want to change it. That's hard to find, and that's why I think it was really unusual for all 3 of us to work so well together. But I'm really hesitant. It's got to be also somebody who would be able to go shopping with me and I can cry because nothing fits and they're just like, let me cry. So, what was the question again?
How you answered it is exactly how I want to answer it because I'm the same way. And I said this earlier when we started this conversation when I was defending myself. I have to feel very comfortable with somebody before I let you into my circle. I don't have tons and tons of friends. I'm friendly with a lot of people. I know a lot of people, but I have very limited close friendships because I have to, like I said, be very comfortable with you before I open up. The friends that I do have, I am very involved in their lives. I have a really close friend here that I've been friends with for 25 years. I know her whole family. I know her aunt. I know her sister. I know her mother. That's the kind of relationships that I typically have when I'm a really close friend with you versus my work relationships, right? I've known some of these people that I worked with for 25 years, but I've never been to their house. I don't know their spouses or anything like that. And I don't want to know them. So that's the difference. I'm very particular about who I let in, and I only let in certain people. Like Keri said, it's got to be people that I feel comfortable with, that I can open up with. And normally those relationships are very important to me because it forms who I am. And then I also feel like I can share all of me with a person like that.
Thank you.
Mm.
I feel that it's harder to make friends as you get older. I feel that when you're young and you're in school and you're around people all the time, you find those people that you're attracted to for whatever reason, that you feel like you gel with, you're pulled towards. I feel that the three of us are definitely longtime friends because we weren't fake. We were definitely real. We spent so much time together. We know who each of us are. We don't expect that you guys are ever going to be like me and I am ever going to be like you. It's who we are. I feel as we get older, it's harder to find that. A, because you don't have that pool of people that you're around, except at work.
Right.
And then it's, do you want to be friends with your coworkers? Depends on the situation. I will say that Andi and Joy and I were coworkers. We've stayed friends, but I was always a little bit leery about crossing that line with people in my workplace as well, because I have a lot of acquaintances, but I don't have a lot of true close friends. That's definitely something I have in common with the two of you. And I am an extrovert. I am out there. So I meet people very easily. But as I get older, I also have a wall where I'm like, what do you really want from this? I guess I kind of second guess and question a little bit. I do feel that my real closest friends are friends that I've been friends with for a long time, like you guys. I am so grateful for the two of you because I know this is not your favorite thing to be talking today on something that's going to be out in the public space, but I'm so appreciative of both of you doing that today and for sharing our friendship story. If you feel comfortable in the future, we might talk about some midlife topics that we didn't really touch on today. It's time to wrap up this episode with Keri and Joy, my good friends. For you listeners out there, you can do us a huge favor by helping us spread the word about This Is Friendship. We will be forever grateful if you'll tell your friends to listen. If you're on a podcast platform, you can hit that follow button. And if you happen to be in a space where there's a review that you can write, we would love for you to do that as well. And Andi and Joy and I want to grow this community of women to support one another. We're getting ready to kick off our mailing list. So if you'd like to join that, you can go ahead and do that on our website, which is thisisfriendshippodcast.com. And if you have some feedback for us, you can send us an email at hello@thisisfriendshippodcast.com. Keri and Joy, we're going to say goodbye to you and thank you so much. We're wrapping up this episode. Have an awesome night, ladies. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks so much.
Thanks.